storytelling, I think, like I said, I'm a scientist and an academic and I love data, but that passion to be able to share information has been ignited through this process.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of MVP, the Marketer's Most Valuable Perspective, a podcast by Dear Storyteller and State of Social. My name is Mike Drysdale. I am your host. I am the General Manager of Dear Storyteller, and we are recording live at Optus Stadium at State of Social 2022. And for the next 20 minutes, we are going to be deep diving into the most valuable perspectives of none other than Holly Ludeman. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I had the pleasure of sitting down and watching your talk yesterday. It is a journey that I am familiar with, naturally. Kind of like state your bias or something like that at the beginning of a podcast. Holly, you did a lot of your work with the Livestock Collective, which is what it was called back then. It's changed its name now, right?
We're still the Livestock Collective.
We're in a process.
Yeah.
But you did a lot of that work with Dear Storyteller's sister agency, Lush, the content agency. And at the time, it came out of like a fundamental need. It was not a nice to have. It was almost an existential crisis. Absolutely.
Crisis event that drove my passion for animal welfare. And I'm a veterinarian. Let's put that out there. I'm not a marketer or a social media expert at all. So This is a really different event for me to be at, a really different audience to talk to. But I think there's learnings from what we did with Lush and other consultants that are really valuable for other people in this space to hear.
And something that strikes me about the kind of tact that you took with this from the get-go was that it was almost a little bit non-interventionalist in the sense that you may not naturally be a marketer or a branding person or a social media person or what have you, but you have managed to turn into a storyteller, and you have told the story of this Livestock Collective by turning on the cameras. And you talked about it in the sense of like there was a void of information. And something that I think is really interesting about what you did was that the content that you captured, there was no steering that was like awfully like hands-on, like let's show you this, let's show you that. It was very much like do less, just show. Just turn on the cameras, roll, and let the story kind of take care of itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even just that first blog I did, that care and that passion comes through in agricultural people. You don't need to get them to say what you want them to say. You just need to ask them the right questions. And I think that storytelling, I think, like I said, I'm a scientist and an academic and I love data, but that passion to be able to share information has been ignited through this process. And then getting other people to do that has been really inspiring. Like just asking a truck driver and a shearer, just tell me why you do what you do, why you care about what you do. And that really resonated with the audiences, I think, in a way that, like you said, there was no information available. So it was pretty easy to fill that void. But also now I think, like you said, turn the cameras on, an open book can't be rewritten. Whereas at the time of starting this project, the book had been written for us and it was awful.
Yeah, I think that's such a fascinating point to kind of pass, because there's this, it's something that we've come up with time and time again when we've talked to clients, and one sort of specific client that I can think of where there's a conversation around like water cooler chatter. And this was a cultural conversation that we were having. And the idea was that it's like, well, if people are talking, they're just being commercially immature. They just don't understand the pressure of what we're talking, why we can't share with them the information that we're sharing with them. And I asked him, are you sharing all the information that you can? Because at the end of the day, those conversations are going to happen, and they are happening. The only difference is you don't have a voice.
You can be part of it or not. Yeah. And absolutely. In the agricultural industry, some of these conversations were happening without the industry having a voice. Yeah. And so that's a really dangerous place to be. And I don't think it's authentic if it comes from like that industry policy body either. And that's possibly why this was so effective and had the movement that it created, was because it authentically came from grassroots people sharing their stories. And, while some of the footage ended up being professional, there was still those kind of real authentic personal experiences from people, a truck driver talking about why he does what he does. So.
it's crazy to me to think that yes, some of the footage was professional, but then what you did was you taught a man to fish. You probably some people that really know how to fish too, but you brought them in and you trained them and you ran workshops sort of with Lush and others, I'm imagining as well, where you got them in the position where they could have their own voice as well. And for, I guess, like, there's something so fundamental about that. It doesn't seem like something that is naturally kind of, it's like, oh, who doesn't know how to post on social media? Well,
most people.
Yeah.
And I think having the confidence to tell your story, whether it's around a dinner table, on social media, writing an opinion piece, talking at a school. Like I, became, I suppose, through this journey, passionate about empowering the supply chain. As passionate I was about, I've got to, create this content and website and, momentum of the Livestock Collective. It was about, well, I want 1,000 of me around the country, and maybe it'll be 10,000 that have the confidence to share their stories.
And you have created that in some ways, right? Like this ag influencer kind of market has almost become a cottage industry.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about a couple? I know you mentioned a couple, but like talk about sort of what they've managed to accomplish in this short space of time?
Yeah, there's a few, and I suppose we do the workshops, and a lot of them might be ag influencers or have great followings already, but someone like the cattleman's daughter, she's from a station up north and had a great following already, but giving her even more confidence, and that brand is beautiful. But she talks about tough things like living in rural regional Australia, mental health, and then there's some really fun people like Mandy Matthews, who has like hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok and shows some really confronting footage, but it's confronting if you're not part of the ag industry. So like, seeing lambs being given birth to, seeing like everyday practice on farm, and just really normalizes it and makes it fun.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of links back to, was it Fernando, our first talker, like make cool shit. Like,
yeah. And
ag can do that.
I was literally about to bring him up because that idea of F1 Drive to Survive, which we saw in the first keynote at Status Social this year, so much of that is that every race car driver became a character.
Yeah.
And we suddenly had a level of investment in those characters. We wanted to know where they were going to go next, what they were going to do. And it's like, for our entire history, right? Like Australians have had a mythology around the Bushmen, the
Ned Kellys.
Exactly, of the world.
Yeah. And that was my passion, was like, I want a livestock agent, a truck driver, a shearer to have that personality for someone in the city to like feel connected to what their jobs are, because they're these unsung heroes of the bush that make our communities tick.
Yeah. And I think outside of the history books, you've got movies, you've got these kind of scripted character portrayals, actors that have played them, but we haven't really had straight up access to these real life characters in the setting that we're most used to now, which is real people telling real stories.
Yeah. And I really related to that first keynote speaker too, about the old school mentality of, we don't need to use social media. We don't need to engage with the young people. And I mean, like that, I was pulling my hair out with that for years. And I mean, I was just a veterinarian and a service provider, but could just see that we were so behind in the communication space. And I think after a leadership workshop, you're right, like here I am, this analytical, data-driven based person, and my personality type actually puts me as this kind of innovative, strategic person. So now I'm doing communication work. I love it, and it's ignited this passion that I want to do more of. So I suppose out of that crisis, it's definitely been a personal journey.
I love that. And it's also, in doing that, what Eccleston did and what some of these old white-haired white men that sort of stood up to you at the beginning and said, this isn't going to work, we're not interested, is they isolated themselves and they took themselves out of the conversation. And then I think what really is interesting about that as well, to quote another sort of very well-known public figure, Brene Brown, she says, one of my favorite quotes of hers is, people are hard to hate close up.
Yeah.
And these guys weren't close to anyone, so they were easy to hate.
Yeah.
But then when you put yourself there, you get vulnerable, you get on camera, you share your story, suddenly you're a bit closer. It's a bit harder to go out of hand, black and white. I just don't. That's
really true. And I think once I was brave and showed that vulnerability and didn't ask for permission though, and kind of went forward with this project. A lot of those critics that would have probably spent too long around the board table thinking about whether to approve this were then the biggest supporters. So I think they were scared, and get on with a legal business. We shouldn't have to talk to people in the general public like this is regulated industry that's legal, but that's not good enough anymore. Like, I suppose ethical social governance is and provenance of products is really important to people. And I think our election and what the community cares about has shown that.
Yeah, social license to operate,
Absolutely.
Right? It's become an enormous thing.
What drives trust and acceptance in an industry, and industries can't stop listening. They're constantly looking at that trust wheel going, what's next?
100%. We're going to jump into our quickfire questions in just a second.
Okay.
But the one thing that I kind of wanted to ask before we did was, throughout this process and in your workshop yesterday, you put on the sound of the ticking clock.
My nightmare.
Yeah. That sound of 60 Minutes is calling, or A Current Affair, or what have you.
Took me so long to get that sound card.
What's the process?
I was like, how do I download it off YouTube? And I couldn't do it. So then I had to turn a Zoom on my own, and I just recorded it, and then I took the audio, and then I'm not sure if that's legal.
I love it. We won't tell anyone. It's fine. It's fine. The question that I wanted to ask was, what was the scariest part of all this? Was there a single moment that you could think of where you gritted your teeth the hardest, or you thought, this is the part where I could just back out, I haven't fully committed yet, or what was it? I
think when I released the first blog after working with Lush, I walked into your office and said, just follow me to the Middle East. And then I released that blog to 200 politicians, media, and then had the biggest media scrum. I was like, this is the end of my career. This is like the end of, the industry can come and go, but I'm putting myself completely front and center. And that was petrifying, to say the least. You guys gave me some good skills, so thank you. But I think out of that fear, just the people that then stood up beside me was, I suppose, the silver lining.
Yeah.
Of everyone going, now we'll stand strong together.
Oh.
And we had the Justice League.
I just got hairs on the back of my neck. I mean, I thought of Avengers Assemble, so, different properties, same feeling. But no, that is really awesome to sometimes you need a leader, and you need somebody to step out in front of the line and say, not on my watch. And that is a terrifying experience.
Oh, yeah.
But to have the other people step up and Avengers Assemble or the Justice League happens.
Give them the confidence. And now looking back, that's what the bravery at the time, which at the time I thought I was stupidity, but that bravery allowed other people to feel confident to stand stronger together.
I love that. What is it like communicating a brand platform that has a very loud opposition?
It's interesting, there's a lot of faceless trolls in the opposition, which I think have just lost traction recently. And maybe it was COVID, or I think, that online farm that, invaded people's properties and things that, there was then changes in legislation to stop. So I think there's coinciding with our growth and authentic sharing, activist organisations, freedom of speech is absolutely what I believe in, but the way they've gone about it hasn't been as acceptable. It's definitely had its challenges, and allowing the people we support to have the skills if they find that challenging, because it is really confronting if you get a young person on social media that then gets attacked by an activist. So we've done a lot of work on making sure people have the skills to deal with that themselves as well.
Yeah, I think there are, one of the good things about communities like Reddit, for instance, is that there is that self-regulating community, right? And they don't really stand for at least the violent stuff. It's like, yes, debate, yes, information, but when it's attacks, that's when...
Yeah, and I think we've been really clear on that culture that we expect. And now the supply chain comes out to back for everyone. Like there's... at one point in time, no one would share anything on Twitter. No one put anything on Instagram that they were even part of the industry. I remember something that impacted me. Another veterinarian said, they would never even tell other people they worked in the industry. And I was like, no, I want to change that. We're impacting animal welfare around the world. Be proud of it.
Yeah.
But call out the things that should be done better.
Yeah.
And, be part of the conversation.
And you did make the point as well that you also sometimes police the ag side of things as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that unacceptable behaviour, it doesn't matter what side it's on.
Yeah.
I think we should call that out. If you wouldn't have that conversation over the phone or face to face, then, I don't think it should be on social media either.
Really incredible to have somebody that is willing to be that bastion and be that light bearer and sort of try to say like, hey, we're better than this. This is how we act. This is how we don't act. I think that's pretty special. Let's go quick fire. Where do you go to learn more about marketing? I'm gonna say marketing because you are learning about marketing. So where do you?
I thought that was such a dirty word when I started. I'm just gonna put it out there. I was like, marketing.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've gone to experts. Like I've gone to, Lush. I've gone to other consultants to go like, what is the best way to communicate? What platform should we be using? And I really like that one-on-one. I need someone to explain it to me. Like, yes, you can Google it or you can go to like podcasts or YouTube, but I needed that one-on-one to understand it myself. That's
really validating for some people. I think that is part of the process. This is probably one that you can definitely answer because of the ag world. What's a small brand that you love and why?
Ooh, so many. I want to go with a non-ag one.
Yeah, you can go with a non-ag one.
I love so many. I love Apple Tree Flat's a really fun one. She's a stock woman who's worked all over the world. She's vivacious and hilarious. So follow Feebird.
Apple Tree
Flat, and they do like kerchiefs. So in the country, like you get this burnt bit on your neck. So you wear the kerchief and you can pull it up when it's dusty. And she makes shirts and bespoke, country wear. But also works on a vessel as a stock woman, works in markets, helping with animal welfare.
Love that.
And she's amazing. But also, so many.
Maybe we'll get some more later. If you could spend 4 hours with any marketer or business person or, I don't know, I'm going to let you open it up to where your mind wanders. But in the world, who would you choose and why?
I'm going to go one non-ag. I'm just like the biggest Camilla fan. I would love to go meet with her marketers.
Wait, Camilla?
The brand, the clothing brand.
Okay, right. So you're just the marketers of Camilla.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, that is a huge Australian clothing brand. I mean, no woman can have enough Camilla in their wardrobe. And this is completely off center from ag.
I love this fangirl moment.
But
that's really cool.
Has these like out there I suppose patterns and colours that, I feel happy when I wear that stuff, and I would love to meet her. I mean, her business model has been amazing.
I love that. What's an emerging trend in your industry that you think is going to be highly influential over the next 10 years?
I think in agriculture, it's provenance. Like, I think the next generation or even now, we want a QR code that tells us where things have come from, how they've been made, what the, ESG of those companies is.
Yep.
Like that trend is not going away. And if we're not listening to that in whatever food fibre is being produced, you'll be left behind.
This question is almost tailor-made for you, Holly. It says, has a major public opinion recently flipped where you felt marketing or communication played a crucial role? Could you tell us, maybe just tell us a little bit about what the outcomes of the work that you've done has achieved?
Yeah, I think your activist organisations had a lot of power and created huge regulatory, political, public outcry. And I think we've been able to change the narrative, change the conversation, allow people to have informed decisions, take the pressure off political, regulatory narratives and as we said, just open up, turn the cameras on.
I like it.
Yeah.
Last question. It's a two-parter. When you think about the term prized possession, what's the first branded thing that comes to mind? And just while you're thinking about that, do you remember a specific ad or piece of marketing that convinced you to buy it?
This is probably, quintessential ag. The R.M. William boots are, that.
Good answer.
I got my first pair when I was 21 and I, worked so hard to get them and I've still got them. And I think, I know it's been bought out and, I'm glad that Forrest has brought it back to Australian owned. Twiggy's brought it back. But, that's a really romantic product. And I think it's just got a link to me to, my uncle in the shearing shed, dad wearing them. It's a really romantic memory. And there are those ads that R.M. Williams did that bring that nostalgic country feeling.
What did you think about the one with Hugh just Starkers with just the R.M. Williams boots on? Did you like that one?
I did, actually. I mean, yeah, they were trying to be a bit quirky and it worked.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's classic.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Nothing but RMs. Holly,
can you have enough pairs? That's the question.
This has been an absolute joy. Thank you for joining us. I know that, as you said, I'm a vet, I'm a scientist, I'm an expert in these things. This is a new sort of space for me. I think you've handled yourself extremely well. I appreciate you being here and for telling your story. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That is all the time we have left for MVP, the marketer's most valuable perspective. Give us a 5-star rating or give us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. You choose what the rating is. And tune in next time that we join you for MVP, the marketer's most valuable podcast, a podcast perspective, a podcast by Status Social and Dear Storyteller. Thanks, guys. See you later.